got big balls. I gotta turn this down a little.
I'm a kid, so I call it KFAN.
It's a covenant cleanup. We say stupid things all of the time.
L.
Oh my gosh. Above average at that.
Hold on to your butts.
Shall we begin?
How unbelievable is this? We 9 to noon today is at Mayo Clinic Square for Minnesota Timberwolves training camp, and we have a laundry list of fantastic guests set to join us. The trade that everybody was talking about over the weekend and really through this morning, involving Karl Anthony Towns, Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, protected first, things like that. It has not gone official.
Correct.
So therefore, with one or a couple of our guests today, you will not hear us mention any of the potential names that are coming here, and you're going to have to completely understand that. But the accommodations the Timberwolves, specifically led by Aaron Freeman, have provided for us here. Is this the owner suite, Aaron? Wow, we're which owner? Just kidding. We're in the owner suite, man. And
he's sweating enough as it is. Come on, man.
Yeah, he's like waiting for somebody. Anyway,
I already took an illegal photo.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. This suite used to be a lot smaller. Now all of a sudden it's dramatically bigger. Just like the expectations for our favorite basketball team, Aaron Freeman, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and with Eric Nordquist, the producer. He's Matt Producer. I'm Paul Allen. And joining us now is Chris Finch, head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Give me a high five so everybody can hear.
Yeah.
Good to see you, man. Great to be back in the mix and see you and see Nickeil Alexander-Walker out here warming up. He's going to join the show at 10 o'clock today. And just to get back into the swing of things that were just so great last year. But first and foremost, the wounded knee. Are we at 100% here?
No, we're not. We're about 60%.
60?
But
Are you still
there.
sitting behind the bench?
No.
Good.
We'll be fully operational. Looking forward to that. But no, it's been great. A lot of rehab this summer. Still a lot to go, but full range of motion. So can do most things normal.
So did you say, so you said still a lot of rehab?
Yeah.
Like what's a lot?
About probably another 4 months, maybe 5. You know, it's a year-long injury to come back to near full strength and full capabilities. You know, I have a newfound respect and appreciation for these athletes, what they go through, and then come back and play at a high level.
Yeah, for sure, because it's arduous.
Yeah.
Specifically, it's like they're like in the National Football League. You'll be playing a game in, say, Week 18 now, and say your team is heading to the postseason. You're going to play your ones for a little bit, then sit them, get ready for the postseason. Well, there will be teams occasionally that you will play who have like 3, 4, 5, 6 wins. They're not going to the postseason. Then you'll watch some of those games back, and you'll see players who make, let's just say, business decisions, because the last thing they want to do in the offseason after grinding through an entire season is rehab something.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you went through. It's arduous, isn't it?
It's a full-time job, really, to get better. And the dedication to get better. And I'm doing it 3-4 times a week. But to do it the level these guys do it at, it's twice a day for 7 days a week. And, with what they have at stake and it's important for them to get back, but it really takes a year, sometimes 2 years for guys to be normal coming back from those catastrophic injuries.
Yeah. Now, last night, Chris and I had the privilege of sharing dinner with some very generous and philanthropic gentlemen, courtesy of Second Harvest Heartland at FEMA's. What an unbelievably good restaurant FEMA's is, by the way. David FEMA, I believe, is the chef's name, correct?
Yes, that is. And he also does a lot of our corporate dining program here. Has had a great relationship with the Wolves and with Second Harvest, dating way back. But, with Second Harvest in particular came to fruition during the pandemic when there was such a need for people to be fed and get food out on the streets. So, but I really appreciate you coming by and being a part of it. And
great.
It was a lot of fun.
At least I can do, man. I mean, we greatly appreciate you coming on the radio show weekly during the course of the season. And, I think this will be the third full season that we're going to be doing this. And you come off a berth in the Western Conference Finals and you move forward again, like I said with Nordo right as you were walking in, that, there's a trade that reportedly has taken place, but it's not official. And we completely respect that, from a team standpoint, when it comes to certain names who currently are not here or not part of the covenant. So I'm just, when it comes to your team into the 2024-2025, I'd like to begin here. In your travels, not only as head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, but working with Mike Malone in Denver, working with Nickeil and the group in Houston, back in New Orleans when you first met Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Have you gained an appreciation throughout your basketball career for tough players who have some bully ball to them?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, I think basketball is no different than football in many ways in that, the physicality of it, you either like to hit and be hit or you don't,
Right.
And we much prefer players that hit and hit first. And, there's ways to be physical defensively, but there's also ways to be physical offensively. And, those guys are a handful. So we're always about imposing ourselves on our opponent in every way we possibly can, and physicality is key to that.
What are with the physicality and in essence taking the punch to somebody in basketball? So say you're not big center guy, say you're not Rudy Gobert, Steven Adams, so you're super physical players taking the fight to them down low. Like what goes into bully ball, taking the punch to somebody, let's say for bigger players who have decent ball handling skills?
Yeah, I think it's about explosion. You got to play quick. Oftentimes, if you have a quickness advantage, you can get that first hit on somebody, and now they're recovering. And then you got to have the skill to be able to finish with a soft touch off of all those moves and counter moves. But we work a lot on, hit first finishing, as we call it. And, the league, I think we saw after the All-Star break, the physicality notch up at least one rung or possibly two in the second half of the season. And be honest, I think players and coaches and officials and everybody really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Why?
I think it was first of all, they were able to get some of the gamesmanship out of the game.
Yeah.
They just stopped calling some of the things that they were rewarding. So all credit to the officials there. There were some plays that, had been hotly debated throughout the early part of last season that we were arguing whether they should or shouldn't be called fouls.
Yeah.
The league did a really good job, course corrected, and gave us a little bit more of what the playoffs are like.
Yeah.
And I think the game had probably gotten too far to the offensive side, and they wanted to bring a little bit of defense back into the game, and that's with some clean physicality.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, when you have big men, okay, it doesn't matter what their name is, if they play here or whatever, just big men in the NBA. And given a lot of the game is predicated on pick and roll offense, whether scoring off of it, passing off of it, but just predicated on it. And you have bigger players who, I don't know, say they're stretch power forwards or fours or whatever, and they can dribble well off the pick and roll and they're in control. How important are players like that?
Yeah, we love them. I've been fortunate in my career to work with a lot of skilled bigs all around the league, every stop I've been at, nearly. And I think, for a while the league had trended small ball. Well, that was it. Golden State kind of made it popular and had a ton of success with it. But in the last few years, we've seen the game kind of come back to size, and skilled bigs are leading that charge.
Yeah.
And they're doing things that guards normally do, like handling pick and roll, or play with the dribble a lot more. It's not necessarily a post-up skilled big. It's a big that's playing all over the floor at any given time.
Right. Is the day and age of pounding the ball down low to a center and letting him do his thing, like Hakeem Olajuwon, Dream Shake, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Sky Hook, are those days gone by, generally speaking?
I don't think they're gone by, but I do feel that the number of players that you can actually do that with is shrinking. I think the smart teams and the smart coaches, if they have that skill set within a player, they'll utilize it, but it's a lot easier to double team now and force the ball out of that player's hand if you're giving a ball in the low block. What I would say is that, a lot of bigs grow up, not necessarily living or learning the fundamentals of the low post any longer. They're playing all over the floor. They see the game in a different way than, bigs did 20 years ago.
Right.
So they have a more varied skill set, or they have a very limited skill set, and they're used primarily in pick and roll as a rolling big.
Well, let me ask you this. Like in this day and age of the NBA, say Patrick Ewing just morphed out of nowhere, didn't get raised in the AAU stretch big, didn't play college basketball with the way you were describing it. Like Patrick Ewing just fell into the NBA right now. How would he fit?
Of course he would fit just fine because of his amazing talent. I do believe there would be some redistribution of how he was employed. I think he'd be used maybe a little bit more in pick and roll, probably 50-50 pick and roll and low post, or played. He played off the elbow in the free throw line quite a bit. And he had the nice little feathery touch from there. Yeah. So I would say he would probably be 20% there and maybe 50% in pick and roll and 30% in the block.
Right.
And he would be effective from all those areas, but I would imagine, he would be least effective in the block just when it comes to offensive efficiency. He would have to get fouled at a really high rate to counter. And I'm sure he would be able to draw fouls in today's game. But, I just think the league has gotten, I don't want to say smarter, but we're way more in tune with what efficient basketball is, so he would be trended to some of these other efficient areas for him.
Did you get a chance to make it to the Lynx game last night?
I did not, but I did watch it on TV.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Me too. After the Second Harvest dinner, and you went to game one, correct?
Yeah. Well, no, I did. I saw game one on TV.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But what I'm getting at here is a question that like Lindsay Whalen, I had her in studio last week. I've asked this question a couple of times this WNBA postseason. But have you noticed it's uncanny how much better the ladies are at the foul line compared to the men? Have you ever noticed that? I mean, you go WNBA games, man, and I swear they hit like 25 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, what I admire about the women's game is the skill and execution. It's generally it's a below the rim game. Execution, spacing, timing, and being able to finish with skill is at a premium in most of women's basketball, and certainly in the W. Men can cheat some of those things with their size, strength, and athleticism. Right. Our execution might not be quite as sharp or needed to be relied on as much.
Chris Finch, head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. 9 to noon is at Mayo Clinic Square for Minnesota Timberwolves training camp. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is warming up right now, and he's practicing and executing his toil and working on his craft. And he will join us at about 10 o'clock, plus many others, and we'll go over the set list here momentarily. But from with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's a utility player for you, he's a two-way player. Defense can be super sticky, and he can also score. From the time you ended up with him, I believe wasn't he drafted by like Atlanta?
New Orleans.
Okay, I thought there was a draft day trade or something. But anyway, so he ends up with you in New Orleans. From where he was then to where he is now, into his second full season with the Timberwolves, what has matured with his game?
Yeah, first of all, you are right. It was Atlanta. We actually traded.
Oh, wow.
I think we traded that 4 pick to get 7 and 15.
Okay.
And we took him. So
sounds like a steal of a deal.
Yeah. Well, what I love about Nickeil is, he's taken the journey of all young players. He's come in with a lot of hype expectation, and he's at times, kind of struggled to figure out who he was as a player.
Okay.
But he did about a year and a half ago. It kind of all crystallized for him. We love him. Like he's as you said, a utility player. I refer to him as a utility infielder. He can play, all the positions you need him to play in the backcourt. Defense first, and he realized that defense has got to get him on the floor. He's got a very clever game offensively, and he shoots the ball at a high level. And when he keeps it simple and does those things, he's a really, really good player. And he's, been a big part of that Mike Conley trade. Like he came in with obviously Mike was the guy in the trade that we were targeting the most when Nickeil came in. It just felt like this was a great opportunity for him. He hadn't had a lot of stability in his career early, and he was kind enough to trust us, and we were able to use him, and we needed him, and he's been a huge part of our success.
Have you known now? Nickeil was a first-round pick, and the NBA with 2 rounds, and so few second-rounders over the years have really stuck and found stardom. So it's a different beast when it comes to drafts.
Yeah,
but like with Nickeil or other players in trying to find their identity, would that be okay in college? Say at Wake Forest, I did this. I was really good at this. I was put in this position. Well, then you get here and it's completely different.
Yeah.
So is that more taking offensive-minded guys and making them complete players, or defensive guys and pulling offense out of them? What does that mean?
Yeah, I think the first thing it means is doubling down on your strengths. Everybody got here by doing something at a high level, and that's what we love about you. So do more of what you're already good at is what I tell our guys. Don't try to do too much. I think that is an adjustment. A lot of players come into the NBA and these teams with established pecking orders, and they're kind of asked to limit their role. And they know they can do more, but those teams may not need them to do more. And so we kind of try to get them to play within themselves, play within their role, and then from there we can grow your role and your opportunity. Playing time is just a currency of trust. That's all it is. It doesn't matter. Any sport, any coach will tell you that if I trust you, you're going to play.
Yeah.
And even more so than if you might not be the most talented on the bench, but I might trust you a little bit more than some of your teammates who are more talented, and that's what we might need is just the reliability of what's going to happen when you go in there.
I love that. So you have a couple of rookies, in Terrence Shannon Jr. and Rob Dillingham.
Yeah.
Dillingham's 19 years of age, I believe.
Yeah.
Unless there's been a birthday since the draft. But when it comes to trust, which obviously is such an important word in pro sports, specifically team sports, with those two. How is the trust earned while maturing from, all right, when Dillingham played for Kentucky, I mean, he's lickety-split running by a bunch of guys who aren't going to be in the NBA.
Yeah.
Well, now he's going against men who are, somebody may be on their last 1 or 2 year deal of a veteran contract. That's a little different than what you ran into against Alabama for somebody who might be working a job at 3M right now. You know what I mean? The trust is earned, I understand it, but how eye-opening is it for rookies when they start playing games that count against these men?
Yeah, it's very eye-opening process. They're extremely talented and best players in the world at that age group when they come into the league. And they're, for lack of a better term, they're kind of overhyped a little bit through the draft. There's very few generational talents, but they're all very, very, very good players, and their timeline to success in the NBA is all different. They go through the summer league circuit. They're playing mostly against, their peer group, and then they come in here and through the rest of the summer, and some of the more experienced players start coming in, and then training camp starts, and the big boys are in town.
Yeah.
So you watch that progression. I pay attention to that progression. Like, how do they do through all those little steps?
Yeah.
And then it's just, I think the speed at which the game comes at them, the information, the system install, all that stuff is so fast, their head's spinning.
Yeah.
And comprehension is the first thing we look for. Like, how much are they absorbing?
Yeah.
We know they're going to make mistakes. The effort has to be there, of course. It will be for all young players because they're super eager. And then I'll go back to what we just talked about. They got to kind of trim their game down to doing the 2 or 3 things that they're really good at. And then that gives them a comfort level.
Right. Chris Finch, 9 to noon from Mayo Clinic Square for Timberwolves training camp. It's great being here. What's next for Anthony Edwards off that awesome? I mean, he's a stud, but went to another level in the postseason when everybody was watching and it mattered most. Yeah. What's next?
Yeah, I think 2 things. One is he just has to continue with the high level of excellence every single night. Develop a machine-like approach. Where, it doesn't matter who you're playing, you're bringing the exact same effort, intensity, application. Then he's got to, continue to figure out how to make everyone around him better in all different situations. And a lot of that would be maybe clutch offense, end of game scenarios.
What with Naz Reid? Naz Reid. Let's say Naz Reid off the bench, no matter who's here, with increased minutes. What do you expect? Not hope. Expect that to lead to.
I expect it to be, more of the same. Instant energy off the bench, instant offense off the bench. His defense has grown leaps and bounds too. It gives us versatility now defensively, which a couple years ago I didn't think I'd ever be able to say. Wow. He can guard a variety of positions. He's worked really, really hard on that end of the floor in the offseason, which is unusual. Most people dedicate time to their craft offensively rather than defensively, but he's taken the challenge to say, for us to keep growing your role and giving you new and different opportunities to play, maybe some small forward too. Yeah. It's going to come down to your defensive growth.
I just opened my bag, and Aaron Freeman with public relations started sweating because he saw my Julius Caesar book, and he had no idea what was going to be next with that. But we just have a few more here to chat about with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And despite the Western team question here, Chris, despite that Western Conference Finals run last year, what are some things on which your team needs to improve to go even farther?
Well, I'd say offensively, we just touched on one, clutch offense, end of game offense, execution, getting better shots, being able to control the end of games offensively as well as defensively. We've been very strong defensively at the end of games, got to get better offensively. I think sticking on the offensive side of the ball, I do think there's more to be had in transition. We were one of the poorer teams in transition. We need some easier, earlier buckets.
But it got better last year from the previous year,
right?
It
did, yeah. It did. And we just have some lazy habits there that we just got to get better at, I think. On the other side of the ball, I think we got to continue to, kind of up our creativity defensively at times. I think last year we were really good in man, really good in zone. Our foundation defense was outstanding. And some of our adjustments were good, but some of them, I didn't have enough confidence probably to execute them at the high enough level. So we got to build that kind of repertoire up through the regular season.
Would you consider yourself an offensive-minded coach? Because I would, from afar.
Yeah, that's what I've been labeled at. But growing up, obviously, coaching in Europe and with smaller staffs and in the G League and whatnot, you have to coach both sides of the ball equally.
Yeah.
So, but I enjoy the challenge of teaching offense, and I have great trust in Elston Turner and Kevin Hansen and Corliss Williamson, who handle all the parts of our defense, and they've done an outstanding job of building a defense here. And that's the other thing we have to do. We have to reestablish that identity. So.
You said something at the Second Harvest dinner last night that I've been thinking about and thought about it on the drive to Minneapolis this morning. The 10 years, the decade you spent coaching in England, there was a time that you didn't feel you'd be in this spot.
No,
like you wouldn't be a head coach in the NBA, which you always wanted to be. Well, why?
Well, I mean, honestly, it was never a stated goal for me. I didn't think I had a pathway here. Being a small college guy, I didn't have a large NBA network. Right upon graduation, I went across to play in Europe, coach in Europe. So I didn't establish a network, wasn't able to work in a video room or as an intern or volunteer through a summer league program or any of that kind of stuff, which is the usual entry path for somebody who was in my situation.
Yeah.
I just kind of played overseas for a few years, got the opportunity to be a head coach at a young age, 27 years old. I got my 10,000 hours in early. That's probably the biggest thing for my career.
Yeah.
And it started to have some success, and from that success, I was noticed by the Houston Rockets, who were looking for somebody different to do something different. It just happened to be me. So very fortunate there. It wasn't that I didn't feel I had the ability to do it. I just didn't think I'd ever have the opportunity to do it. So I thought my path would be college and maybe even small college. Maybe I wasn't thinking big enough, but at the time I was in a good, very good place in Europe. Career was going great, getting bigger and bigger. So I was happy there, but I knew when the Rockets came calling that I had to take a chance and go because it was really my only chance.
Yeah, that's a wonderful story, and here you are with a wonderful team. Couple more questions for Chris Finch for Minnesota Timberwolves training camp. It's 9 to noon. Analytics and basketball. How do they mesh with the day-to-day grind of the game?
I think they're pretty seamless right now. I think it's been a bit of a journey. With all analytics, and every coach will tell you this, and every business will tell you, like, getting data is not the problem.
Yeah.
Figuring out which data is most important to winning and then applying it in the right way.
Right. Those
are the challenges. And now that we've been able to have this data for a while and be able to look at it and apply it, and also when you're talking about it with your team, because they have to be a willing partner in what you're trying to do, you got to sell it to them. What part is digestible for them? Like, you can't overload them. They just want to play basketball, you know? So you got to try to trend them in the right areas. And once you can show them how it benefits them, they're usually, or benefits the team, they're usually on board. So we've gone through that period. It has homogenized the game a little bit. Every team kind of looks the same, and everyone talks about shooting. We need more shooting. Yeah, of course, but there's other ways to play the game. You don't just have to have 5 shooters out there,
right?
And that's still the challenge. And our mantra around here is, analytics are a guide. They're pointing us in the right direction, but they're not a god. We're not doing it just because it says we're not blindly going to do it.
So I would imagine, Chris, that there are teams that are more analytically based with the way they try to guide the totality of the game.
Yeah.
Well, does that become, I don't want to say predictable, but like, hey, we're playing this team, and more than anybody, they do this off analytics. So it's, in essence, it's almost a tell.
Yeah, it is a tell. And having been in some of those heavily analytics-based and driven organizations, you can tell when a team is using your system against you defensively. So you have to leave enough wiggle room and freedom for the players to be able to just play basketball within those constraints. We know what the threshold is for what makes good offense versus bad offense. You got to give great players more freedom than you do role players. All that stuff doesn't change. And what analytics can't tell you is the connectivity between your players. The health of your locker room. Whether there's game plan buy-in. Like, there's a lot of things in basketball that drive winning that analytics cannot define.
Hey, with back to Anthony Edwards for a second, Super Stats Dave Hanlon, who's the statistician for Alan Horton, he just texted me a cool question that I want to get in here. With Edwards and the Olympics, and the time he spent with, let's say, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, have you noticed anything different about him after hanging with those guys?
Yeah, well, first of all, he came back from the Olympics and he came right here to Minneapolis to get his work done, which I believe has been huge. And just, leadership, being in town, being in the gym, been super focused. I've noticed year after year his routine and his work has been more targeted, more effective, continues to be more and more professional. And now, talking to him the other day, he's trying to clean up his diet. All young players, it's one of the things that changes last when they're kind of evolving as a professional athlete. It's how they eat and how they sleep, because they've been young kids. They've eaten whatever they wanted and still been outstanding at their craft. So they don't think it matters, but it really does over the course of a long season and a long summer. So I've noticed a lot of these changes. His leadership, his voice is getting more prevalent, and some of it is directly taken from his experience in France. In fact, the other day he was just talking about how amazed he was to watch LeBron and come in every day in a great mood. And be the first one in the gym.
So in closing here, man, I'm going to have to wrap this up. You and I could do this for 2 hours. So we see Luka Garza. We've seen Nickeil Alexander-Walker. That's great. Where's Joe Ingles?
Oh,
I got to see Joe Ingles.
He's a vet. He'll probably show up a little bit closer to
that's fine.
Work day.
He has guidelines. Everybody else has rules.
Yeah, we have Josh Minot down here in the corner.
Yeah.
He's had an outstanding summer for us.
Good.
He's probably on the brink of helping in some capacity this year, so we're excited about that.
And earning the trust, right?
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Okay, so for just Ingles, I mean, he's joking. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Still twitchy off the dribble?
Yeah, super crafty.
Yeah.
Just knows how to play. He's one of those guys that, just really, really clever.
Yeah.
And, just you hated playing against him. He's got some Kyle Anderson in him. He's kind of got that saltiness we love.
Yeah.
So
Dillingham with the dribble, Summerlin. I mean, how fast is he with the ball?
He's really fast, and we needed that. We needed to pick up our pace. So one thing we got to get him, a little bit more out in the open court. He needs the freedom and the ability to just go. Right now, I think he's trying to survey too much, trying to fit in, but he's got to go and do his thing in transition.
Lastly, Mike Conley.
Yeah.
He's the glue.
Yeah.
He's the glue, right?
No
I mean,
doubt.
Edwards, superstar, Gobert, but, I mean, Conley, with the minutes he plays at this stage of his career, the way he works, so I would imagine with younger players and veterans and the staff and relaying, almost being a conduit between the two. That's just what I've noticed with a lot of really sharp veterans who care late in their careers. But he's a glue guy for you, isn't he?
He is a glue guy, and but anytime we've called on him to do more, pick up the scoring or any of those things, he's responded. So he still has a lot of game left. He's a perfect connective tissue in your terms. He's a glue guy, but he's way more than that. Just with his leadership and his presence. He's in a great mood every day. He's in the same mood every day. He's always in the ear of our young players.
Yeah.
They have an incredible amount of respect. We are lucky to have them. We've said it time and again.
And I have, in closing, an incredible amount of respect for Allison O'Toole with Second Harvest Heartland, somebody with whom I believe you went to college.
We did.
You've known for quite some time.
Yep.
I've gotten to know the people at Second Harvest Heartland over the last few years through you. toharvest.org if you would like to help. Chris is on the board. And I learned so much last night about so many wonderful things Second Harvest Heartland does for people in need of food. So I'm just really glad you're part of that.
We appreciate all your support and the way you've gotten behind us over the years.
Yep. Your countenance has changed. Is it because I not just missed 3 3-pointers in a row? And it's not a shot-by-shot thing, right?
We try not to live and die with every shot.
I appreciate you, man.
All right, thanks, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having us here, too.
Appreciate it.
That's Chris Finch, head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. 9 to noon is at Mayo Clinic Square in Minneapolis for day 1 of Minnesota Timberwolves training camp. And when we return, Jonny Athletic, John Krasinski is going to join the program. After that, we have some Vikes Bites. Then Nickeil Alexander-Walker joins at 10 o'clock. Michael Grady, the TV Vox, at about 10:15, 10:20. Alan Horton, the radio Vox, at about 10:35. And basketball immortality and broadcasting immortality, Jim Peterson, joins 9 to noon at 11 o'clock. Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com, at about 11:30, 11:35. Nordo produces, and I'm Paul Allen. You're listening to 9 to noon. That was all courtesy of TimberTech and TimberTech.com. And Brett Blakemore guides the Great Ship Love Covenant from FM 100.3 KFAN and the 651 Carpets Plus studios. And main man Double B has that cash thing.
I got the cash thing. The fan and 2 men in a truck want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand at the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com and enter the keyword grand for today. Keyword grand. KFAN.com, keyword grand. More 9 to noon from Wolf. Join KFAN and Justin Guard for an epic Purple Watch Party at Forgotten Star Brewery October 6th. Come enjoy great brews, quarterly prizes, all while watching the Purple as they battle it out against New York in London. Doors open at 7 a.m. Full details, KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Here's Johnny K, Jonny Athletic. as the Moses Ihambe fan club fan line show begins. Moses Ihambe, the name I just mentioned. He's on the court in front of us right now. This is radio. I recognize people can't see him. I did some speaking engagements with him in the off season. He's a salt of the earth human being. But for those who don't know what he does here, Moses is he's a big part of the Covenant. What does he do? And good morning.
Good morning, PA. He's a player development coach, so he works a lot with some of the younger guys, but I think really his biggest role here is like he's the spirit and the enthusiasm of this coaching staff.
Right.
Finchie's serious.
Yeah.
Micah and so these guys are real serious and pros. And I think Moses breathes some light and positivity into this. He is over the top, positive and kind of a shining light. So big role here.
All right. So we laid it out hopefully eloquently atop the show. The Karl Anthony Towns, Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, protected Pistons first, Keita Bates, Jop, just whatever iteration is going to be finalized is not finalized. So therefore, with Chris Finch and probably Alan Horton a little later, you won't hear those names come up. But like with Chris, I laid it out by starting with, hey, do you love tough players who have some bully ball to them? Do you love bigs who can handle off the pick and roll? What do you think of 3-and-D guys? How important are they in this league, specifically those who shoot threes at a voluminous nature? And I don't know, average like 22-7 a game against, say, Indiana in the first round of the playoffs. So that's the best we could do.
Yeah.
We can talk about all that with you.
Yes.
And by the way, your most recent story at The Athletic, fantastic.
Thank you.
About this trade and Karl Anthony Towns and everything. But for those who missed the story, just paint with a broad brush for a couple of minutes. We'll pause, come back and talk about more. The trade that is going to be official today, I believe.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean it's a huge move on the eve of training camp for them to shuffle the decks. This ends an era in Minnesota. This was the Karl Anthony Towns era. 9 years that he was here, and what it really came down to was a couple of things. One is that the move to bring in Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo especially reshuffles their salary cap sheet. So instead of putting so much resources into Karl Anthony Towns for such a long time, they are breaking that deal up and sprinkling it around with multiple players. That's going to allow them to make trades that they wouldn't have been able to make with Karl Anthony Towns. It's going to allow them to make signings they wouldn't have been able to make, especially I think Naz Reid, who is going to be coming up. He's going to be he has a player option at the end of this year, and if Cat would have stayed, Naz and probably Nickeil would have had to go. So it was a flexibility play, but also there's a lot of talk about the financial end of this, but if you talk to people inside the organization, they do push back on any suggestion that maybe they got worse in this deal. I think that they feel.
Well, who would say that?
Well, fans,
Really?
other league observers would, because let's say Cat was the best player traded in this deal, and so oftentimes when you move out the best player, you say, "Oh, what's going on here?" But I think that the organization they love DiVincenzo, love his fit. It's going to be seamless. He's going to come in and give them a lot on the wing that they need for versatility, for depth, for playoff performance, all of that. Then you bring in Julius Randle, who is incredibly skilled, incredibly tough and physical. It will give them an entirely different look than Cat gave them.
Yeah.
But I think that they feel like they can kind of harness his playmaking and his overall aggression and toughness in really good ways to help this offense. So they're feeling good about it.
Well, let's unpack more of that around the corner so we can get caught up here. This is Johnny Krasinski, Jonny Athletic, and follow him on Twitter as 9 to Noon does. That would be at JONKRAWCZYNSKI. You're listening to 9 to Noon.
Head over our contest page, enter for your chance to win tickets to see the Vikings take on the Lions October 20th. Thanks to Custom One Exteriors, the official home partner of the Minnesota Vikings. KFAN.com. Keyword contest center.
So with the Karl Anthony Towns era, it's going to be, as of today, when this deal goes officially done. How would you qualify the era?
I would say that he had a lot of individual success, 4 All-Stars, 2 All-NBAs. I do think also, if you want to look at the positives of it, he left the Timberwolves organization in a better spot than when he came in.
Right.
When he came in, it was a dumpster fire. It was a dumpster fire throughout his early seasons, and now he leaves 3 playoff appearances in a row, Western Conference Finals, all of those things. One of the things that, I've often been accused of being a cat apologist, but let's just be real with it. He had 7 general managers and 5 head coaches in his first 7 seasons.
Yeah.
Like, this was, he was a product of his environment in some ways.
Right.
But I think it's also fair to say that when he's drafted number 1 overall in 2015, and the way that he started out his career, I think fans expected him to ascend to a level that he did not get to.
Right.
He was not one of those guys who is, if he's on my team, we're winning 50 games and we're in the playoffs. No questions asked. He's not that. He was not that guy. So, as a player and as a team, it was a good run for him. It probably fell short of some expectations. And then, but as a person, human being in the community, caring for people, I'll never say a bad thing about him that way.
And I'm glad you said that, because I didn't realize how important off the court and community and philanthropic ways were to Karl Anthony Towns and really his family and like his insulated group. And, it was your tweet or somebody's tweet where like he's traded, he's negative on it. We got the ellipses tweet, perceived negative. Well, and then he's with like a soccer group or something in Blaine.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I'll tell you, the Socceroob was my daughter. So,
it was?
Yeah. So he texted me on after the trade and said, "Hey, my daughter is a huge Karl Anthony Towns fan, and she wears number 32 because he wore 32." Right. And so he said, "Hey, where are you guys going to be on Saturday?" And I said, "Well, we're going to be at a soccer tournament for my daughter." He's like, "I'm coming." So he showed up at the game. Said goodbye to my son and daughter, and so like that's the kind of purity of heart that he has.
That's very sweet.
And so that kind of stuff, coat drives, taking care of people, random acts of kindness. That was Karl Anthony Towns.
Have you pondered at all the Tibbs thing now? He'll be going to New York and playing for his old coach.
Yeah, they have since mended the fences, but I also wonder if let's say you break up with your girlfriend and you had all these issues, and then you spend a little time away and you think, you know what, she really wasn't that bad. And then you move back into your apartment together and try and reconcile, and then all those issues come back up. So we'll have to just see how that goes. But the Tibbs, the coach, and Karl, the player, are the exact same people. They have not changed at all. So seeing how they interact will be very interesting.
And what's also interesting is what you said 15 minutes ago about Nickeil Alexander-Walker and the two-way player that he is, and the morphing from Toronto through Virginia Tech through New Orleans and everything, and just how his game's really morphed into becoming a wonderful two-way player.
He's sitting right here, but I would tell it to his face. I would say it privately and publicly. One of the best stories of last season was watching Nickeil assert himself in this league. Become so reliable, such a great defender, but also a good offensive piece. And I'm not sucking up, but I really enjoy talking to Nickeil. He's like very thoughtful. He's very open with us, and you get a real sense of who he is as a person and just how important he is as a player. So, A+ person.
I ran out of time with Finchy to sneak in this Jaden McDaniels question. But like with his improvement and his maturation and, offensive skill, that sometimes when you have Anthony Edwards and you have Mike Conley and you have Karl Anthony Towns and so on. With McDaniels, what would you expect the metamorphosis, the next step for him to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was a hard last year during the regular season for him because he was like the 5th option all the time. Where does he get some offense and find a rhythm? But then in the playoffs, he was great. He played, both ways, shot the ball really well. And if you remember the previous year when Cat was injured for a long time, Jaden really stepped up offensively because there was just more, kind of piece of the pie for him to eat.
Yeah.
And everyone that I talked to says that he had a wonderful summer. And I think now that Karl is out, there's going to be more shots to just go around, and I think Jaden is going to be a natural beneficiary of that.
Yeah.
And I think everyone is looking for him to have a big leap this year and to really, he's already one of the best defensive players in the league, but he's got some more versatility offensively than he's really been able to show.
Right.
And I think we'll see more of that this season.
I ain't trying to be an elite Dante DiVincenzo mind from like back in the Golden State days, but when I watched him last year, and the 3-point shooting prowess, whether he's with Brunson or without Brunson, whether Randall's hurt or he's not hurt, in that Indiana series in the postseason where they lost, the Knicks lost, I mean, he might have gone for like 23 a game.
Yeah, 39 in one game.
Yeah, and he
in
was
Game 7.
and
yeah.
he was the identity of games offensively at times. But from what I understand, I'm sure you know this, but he won a state high school basketball championship with the Vikings right tackle Brian O'Neill.
Yeah.
At least one. I mean, they're very, very close.
Yeah.
And I had no idea the perimeter defense that DiVincenzo can play. Like Klay Thompson, when he was atop his game, he would be ballyhooed for that. But is that a major part of his game, perimeter defense or defense overall?
I mean, I think he's a good defender for sure. I think that the theme that I get from this trade overall with him and Randall is toughness.
Yeah.
Like, they're both just tough dudes.
Right.
And he's going to get in. He's going to compete hard. He's had big moments in the playoffs. He's not going to back down from anyone. And when you move out a shooter like Cat, one of their very best shooters, and needing to add more floor spacing, having a guy that comes in and shoots above 40% at a very high volume is really going to help them a lot. But yeah, he's got versatility to his game and toughness, and that's gonna help things.
Lastly, and thank you very much for the time, you get to cover Joe Ingles.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, just come on.
Can't wait.
And I was talking to Finchy at that Second Harvest Heartland charity dinner last night. All I asked was, is he still twitchy off the dribble? I mean, he's so twitchy off the dribble, and like earlier in his career, he was twitchy off the dribble with a little head fake, and he would like go to the basket. At this stage of his career, he might stop midway and then like pass and stuff like that. But
pull-ups,
he's one of the more identifiable, cool players who hasn't played a ton of minutes the last X amount of years. But you get to cover Joe Ingles.
I can't wait. Yeah, 37 years old. He's a character. Like, I think he likes to stir stuff up a little bit, which is fun.
Yeah.
And what Finchy was saying to you was that he's got some Kyle Anderson to him, and there's no higher compliment in Chris Finch world than if you got Kyle Anderson in you. So I think Joe's going to help kind of make up for the loss of Kyle, at least offensively some.
Yeah.
We'll see how much he plays. He's a little older, but I think he's going to come through in big spots for them, and Finch will lean on him to make some plays in the half court and just kind of be out there and bring some edge and some fun to this group.
Love you, my brother.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man.
Right.
God bless you, and you and your family, and we'll chat soon, okay?
Thank you.
Oh, that's Johnny
Thanks,
Krasinski, Jonny Athletic. Let's just go ahead and roll and make this a marathon segment, courtesy of FVP batteries and FVP parts. Reach for what works. FVPparts.com. We're going to go ahead and marathon with this. Hi, Nickeil. Paul Allen, pleasure to meet you. That's Eric Nordquist. He produces the radio show, and it's great to have you here, meet you, and have you on the radio show. How are things going for you?
Things are going well. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
That's awesome, man. Really, really have enjoyed watching you, not only during your career, but last year in the postseason. And just, from when you came into the league with New Orleans, first round pick, all right, to where you are now. When it comes to like establishing your identity so that coaches can trust you, specifically Chris Finch. What's that process like? Well, by the way, there was a pandemic involved in there too. Mm-hmm. But like, what's that process like? Really feeling, hey, I fit in here and I'm good at these 5 things and I'm going to last.
Yeah, I think the process is very revealing in terms of who you are as a player. And then ultimately who you are as a person. I think in life, people want a lot. And in this league, I've learned to understand that you gotta sacrifice what you want and never be to get what you want. And that there's sacrificing things and meeting each other halfway. And there is no, I have this set goal and dream, and I'm just going to go about it how I see fit.
Right.
You come to an organization where there's other guys who are established. You come to an organization where the coaches is established. They have and in my situation, I was being traded to a group that's already been to the playoffs, looking to go back, looking to do to build on what they've already have.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, okay, how do I come in and add to that?
Yeah.
How do I give them reasons to play me? Because as of now, they have no other reason to believe that what they have won't work. So for me, it was just like coming in to add, understanding who I am and where I can be of service to this team the most.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just growing from there, building stepping stones, inevitably trying to carve out something for myself to become better, but that's all that goes into it.
And that's beautifully explained. Thank you for that. It in essence is a thy, not I approach. And that requires maturity. I mean, because human nature gets to win too. So therefore, you come into the league, however old you were, and compared to now, well, you're naturally going to mature as a man. You're naturally going to mature as a player. What was that, the way you laid that out? You might come in here wanting to play 35, 36 minutes a game and do this, that, and the other, but amplifying the team concept, the thy, not I concept, that's kind of what you morphed into, right?
Yep, for sure. And I think over time, it gave me that understanding that it wasn't. I think everyone's afraid of something as much as they don't want to admit it.
Amen.
Everyone's afraid of something, and for me, it was not accomplishing what I wanted to. And I thought at first, am I going to have to let all of that go, accepting this? And then I understood it's like, well, it's either you accept it or you're out of the league.
Yeah.
And from that standpoint, it kind of just puts things into perspective where it's like, you can't keep protecting things how you see fit because that's not how life works.
Yeah.
And
it's also selfish.
Exactly. And so I had to understand that, like, it's bigger than me and it's already written.
Yeah.
If I have faith in God, like I say I do, and I believe in my work, then I'm going to have to let things play out how they see fit.
Oh,
and
that's beautiful.
I think last year that's kind of what it was, just letting it play out and letting things organically happen because you can't manipulate your way through life. And that was one of the biggest things to me getting here. With this team, with this coaching staff, and from even my rookie year with Finch, I think that was probably one of the lessons he was trying to give me, but I think our communication at the time, it just didn't get across in that way. Like my perspective, my paradigm, where he was, where I am, it was like, ultimately, that's what it felt like.
Wow.
Now, when you look back at it and you unravel, and I remember some of the conversations we've had that have stuck with me.
Yeah.
And so I think from all of that, that's my biggest takeaway. That's kind of given me this clarity, if you will.
Yeah. And I mean, man, I just met you. Okay. I'm going to you have some deep thinking to you. You think about things deeply and they're layered. And context clearly is important to you, whether you just reference the Bible, whether it's that, whether it's your lot in life, which means those are the types of players that coaches absolutely will love no matter their level of skill. Because you're going to push, but you're going to push respectfully. But when it's like you said, everybody fears something whether they want to admit it or not. Some people want to push. Some people can get deep into it with the context, and they may be right. But when the other pushes back, they don't necessarily like that. You know what I mean? It's the give and take, the two-way. It sounds like there was something you had to bust through at the professional in your professional existence. You've busted through it, and now it's like sky's the limit, man. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's almost poetically said. Just because for me, it felt like a breakthrough. Yeah. Like you're saying, like the huge weight is lifted from your shoulders, and there's an understanding that you've always wanted, and you couldn't really figure it out. You couldn't crack the code. Yeah. And as you go about life now, you're kind of like, oh. So that's what it was. And it's like,
that's awesome.
Like what's through that door? Yeah. You know what I mean? And like you tend to go other routes because you can see what's behind it.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Like
human nature gets to win too.
Mm-hmm.
Best way to look at it.
And so, yeah, that's actually exactly what it was. Like, I had to, just keep faith and hold on to that and trust that it's going to work out. And if it's meant to be, it'll be all the life cliches. And I think they're cliches for a reason because they stand true.
Right. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a third season with the Minnesota Timberwolves into his second full season. He's a Toronto native. And about 4 minutes ago when we started the conversation, you said something that indicates to me when somebody says organization in the United States of America, you can take the kid out of Canada, but sometimes you can't take the Canada out of the kid. You can't take the Canada out of the kid, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure.
So with Canadian basketball, and growing up playing basketball in Canada, obviously known for hockey greatness, did you ever consider playing like wing for the Toronto Maple Leafs or something?
It's crazy. Like my uncles grew up playing hockey.
Yeah.
I'm actually the only one in my family that cannot skate.
Oh, you can't? Did you try?
I never tried. I just never.
You can skate. You're an athlete.
Yeah, I just never really gave it that focus. For some reason, basketball just kind of took place in my heart, and it never left since I was first introduced to it. And I remember stories of my uncle making my mom be goalie and just slapping a bunch of shots at her, and just all those different stories of him playing in his earlier years. And so for me, that was always in the family. I remember in elementary school, all of my friends would be talking about the Leafs and all these other players, and it was like a time for me. Now I'm kind of more into collecting jerseys of sports, a lot of hockey jerseys and whatnot, but I never gave hockey the chance a Canadian would have.
Right. Well, how much of an honor is it, or was it for you, playing for the Canadian national team in the Olympics?
I think it was really, really, really cool. But deeper than that, you don't understand it until you're there. Mm-hmm. And for me, because Canada is such a young country, so to speak, and it's a melting pot, a lot of your heritage comes from somewhere else.
Yeah.
So when you're playing against France, who's been in history books since the beginning of time, you play against Israel, or you're going up against someone from Spain, or whatever these countries are, it's kind of they have so much lineage behind their names, behind their stories, and what it means to represent their country. And then as I got there, I understood the honor it was to represent Canada and what it meant, and for me to be a part of something so special with quote unquote the world's best.
Yeah. So
for me, that was an eye-opening experience, and an amazing one at that, just because it brought a sense of honor to where I'm from, my story, and what entails in my story.
But you're still but you still have a game to win, a game to play, people to stop, toil to be executed, and you're an athlete, and you're a competitor. So therefore, like all of the pomp and circumstance with the Olympics, and oh, by the way, here comes the USA team, and oh wow, there's Ant, yeah, I know him. Oh well, there's Steph. Well, there's LeBron. Wow, that's KD. Those guys roll out, and is there, do you look at it and have to take a deep breath and say, I got a job to do here? I don't care if they're 15 deep with nothing but Magic Johnsons and Larry Birds. I got a job to do, and I got to go out and try to beat them.
Yeah, I think most definitely, and you can kind of see just the focus of how different a FIBA game is, but also those guys gave the U.S. a run for their money.
Yeah.
They weren't just sailing through teams.
Correct.
They really gave them a run for their money.
I thought Serbia had them beat.
And that's just and that just goes to show you, when you play for something, we seen Jokic with emotion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That in and of itself is a sentence that will tell you what Olympic and playing for your country means.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the biggest examples that I can use, but at the end of the day, it is basketball.
Yeah.
And you move further as a unit. And when you have kind of like, in a sense, less could be more.
Yeah.
Where you got your core guys, you got the role players, you got your star, and everyone just flows together. But if everyone's moving in the right direction, I think with the U.S., why they've had success is because they've been able to have great talent, but also guys who are committed to a lower value than what they're used to.
Yeah.
And playing a role that may be seen as beneath them.
Right.
But in that moment, because of what matters and the history behind it, you do it because of your country.
And it brings out those moments, and correct me if I'm wrong, you know more about it than me. It brings out the best in everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like, man, I always forget his first name. The Bogdanovich who plays for Atlanta, used to play for Sacramento.
Yeah.
Well, he's never played better. I mean, seriously, he was so cold-blooded, and he's a tough player in the first place.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But, like, you see things like that with players who are backups, however you want to frame, 15 to 22-minute a game guys in the league, and then that pride and everything, it's just so beautiful. All right, I don't want to keep you for too much of your time.
No, you're good.
Oh, this is terrific. I could do it for an hour, quite honestly. Wonderful meeting you. Now, when you entered the league, you just missed Julius Randle in New Orleans, but you've played against him. What do you know and or like about his game?
I think he's a very dominant player. We played against him when he went like insane.
Oh, that 59?
Yeah. And I think when he gets hot, he can really get going. I think for his size, the ability of what he's capable of doing, it fits well with our offense and having that presence at the 3, at the 4, and his ability to like even surprisingly pass.
Yeah,
I think
especially off the pick and roll, right?
It's not talked about as much, but I think at the same time, people don't really like to use context when they use comparison.
Yeah,
and I think when you're going to compare Kat and Julius, but then also at the same time, their abilities, I think going on the team he was playing with, like a New York team that was rebuilding, and then he got to a New York team that was good, and then so it's just a lot that happened throughout those years, and so you kind of like gotta take it for what the situation is, and then also allow that person to like you can't really look at the numbers and keep it as skewed, but that's what I've learned to do, and I seen him working out the other day, and he was actually a really good shooter, and I think that's something that we can add and use, and I think we've definitely gotten a lot better in, especially with Dante as well.
Yeah,
and
you're a Hokie. Now these Kentucky Wildcats. I mean, they're all over the place. Booker, I don't know if Bledsoe's still in the league, but I mean, shoot, he was super tough at Kentucky and playing with Milwaukee and wherever. I mean, just a really good tough guard. They're all Davis, Cat, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed when these cats get together against each other, these former Wildcats, like Anthony Davis against Cat, or Julius Randle against Cat, or Anthony Davis against Julius Randle? It's unbelievable how the extents they go to just like not only win the game, but beat the former Cat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely the bragging rights. I can understand it going up against Shea myself. So.
Oh yeah,
I think.
Is he your cousin?
Yes.
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a nice player right there.
Grew up our whole lives together. Like one of my life's best friends, and feels like more like a twin brother for me than a cousin, but. Yeah, like just seeing his success has been amazing too. So I can definitely understand when you're going up against someone from your alma mater or whatever the case may be, and like wanting to win that game because at the end of the day, like you're gonna hear about it.
Yeah,
and all of us are competitors, and we're gonna talk our trash at the end of the day too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Shea, dynamite team player. You, dynamite team player. If you and Shea were to play 1-on-1, play 21, who's going to win and why?
I think we won't finish the game. When we were younger, we didn't really finish much games.
Really?
It just got really heated. Just a lot of like.
You might shoot threes better than him.
I believe so. I think he would say so himself. But then again, he's not one to give credit. But I think like just out of all of us, like it just gets a lot heated. But It'd be a good series, but I think I'd come out on top. But it'd be a good series.
So with Vincenzo, have you played against him frequently? And like with this defense, I mean, 3-and-D kind of guy. What makes him good?
His in the playoffs, one thing that he did well for New York was consistently make shots. And I think in this league, you will always have a role when you're consistently making shots and you're guarding. And the fact that he can do that off the bench for our team just adds more depth. I think you can never run out of depth. And it's a long season. Guys get hurt. Guys need to step up. And so for us to have more depth than what he's able to do, shoot the ball, guard, play with high energy. And I think even from Villanova, when the championship game on, like how he really could score the ball outside of just shooting the ball. Finishing well, sneaky athletic. So I think it's definitely going to help us. And seeing his edge in that Indiana series when guys got hurt and his ability to step up in a high pressure moment. And talk his trash too. I think that's good from a competitive spirit. And like we're a team that's led by Anthony Edwards, so there's gonna be a lot of trash talking, a lot of fire behind it.
Right.
So
respectfully speaking,
yes, of course.
We're gonna have to stop this because I could chat with you for an hour, man. I'm just gonna end it like this with when they were all together with the Knicks, and I'm missing one here. Might have played for another team. Villanova, you mentioned Brunson, Josh Hart, your former teammate, Dante DiVincenzo. Was there another one in there? That
Nickeil Bridges.
Well, that's right, exactly. With the Knicks now, and formerly with the Nets. But you, this is real hardcore narrowcasting basketball. But I just want to ask you this question because I've always wondered it. Josh Hart. I mean, it's like Josh Hart is a wonderful all-around game, tough as nails. You play with him in New Orleans, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, he'll go games where he scores 3, then he scores 6, and he scores 14. But everybody plays him a ton. What makes Josh a really good all-around basketball player?
Honestly, he's got one of the best motors that I've seen. Josh can go for days, and he doesn't stop. And I think his personality, great teammate. Great teammate. Good heart. Literally in the name, I guess. But just everything he does and brings to a team. It's huge. And one thing that guys will get mad, I want the ball. Josh is getting mad because he's not getting rebounds. You know what I'm saying? That's something that's gonna help the team. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, he really found his niche, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna be an amazing rebounder, the best that I can be to help us and to grow and to become better. And I think for me, it was really cool to watch because there are times in the game where me and Josh would be joking, and it turned into a little thing where I might get a rebound when he's going, and he might just be like, he might cuss at me and whatever. But it's a little lighthearted fun.
Right. That's awesome.
That's just
that's camaraderie.
Him in a nutshell, and a great team guy, cares about getting better and winning games and doing the small things. And you see it when he plays. It's hard to.
Seems like a perfect Tibbs guy. Who Tom Thibodeau will like. All right, last one, I promise. Once this deal is going to be official today, so Randall and DiVincenzo will be here. They'll be part of the covenant. Start working out with each other and the whole thing. So let's put them in the mix here. You guys got close to the finals last year. What leads you to believe that year was knocking on the door, and this one could be or will be banging that door down?
I think it's just what Finch said. He asked us in the start, are we going to be a Western Conference Finals team or a team that made the Western Conference Finals? And it was just about setting a standard for us and an identity and reestablishing that and who we are going to be as a player, as players, and as a team as a whole. And I think for us, it just starts with one, getting those guys acclimated as soon as we can, as easy as we can, as best as we can, and then just taking it step by step. building good habits. Rome wasn't built in a day, but we want to layer a foundation that's going to allow us to get to where we want to be. I think this whole summer, my mindset was like, after the series happened and we lost, I was like, were we an NBA championship team? And not like were we capable of it, but were we acting like such? Were we carrying ourselves like such? Was I carrying myself like a champion, so to speak? And so that really like made me confront a lot of things. And this season, I think having that confrontation, but also remembering that is going to be that accountability needed to grow.
When's it time for a new contract? Because I want to represent you. I'm not kidding you, man. You're inspiring.
Thank you.
God bless you, my friend.
I appreciate you.
Thank you for the time. And best of luck this season, okay?
Yes, sir.
That's Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 9 to noon. And here comes the cash thing with Double B.
The cash thing, the fan and 2 men in a truck want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand at the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com and the keyword money for this hour. Keyword money, KFAN.com, keyword money.